see the one that I have wanted for so long. Deep in my heart, I know the arms that hold me now will hold me from
Okay, so Lisa is not singing, she's not your cue. Your cue is.
you say you won't slip away. Then
What? Right after Lovell, I read the diary.
She was actually before Eden.
Yeah? Yeah, she was before Eden.
So she's right.
I'm ready for my close-up.
Anybody who wants to be my secretary? It's likely that we're going to start a little late because they still had 300 tickets to sell. Bobby? Are the lights very, very dim?
So look over there, a little bit. There are people sitting listening to her story. She needed that extra movement. Because she does play the back side of the
I can handle it. I just didn't want to keep walking back and forth across the stage. Yeah.
Yes, we went everywhere. We were everywhere, believe me.
Yeah, you see a weird looking shallow.
Yeah. 19th, 20th, and 21st this year. But we're having a raffle to raise money to help us out.
Free membership.
$5 kids otherwise.
I'll leave.
Yeah, and then you get advance notice of all these things.
Gosh, that's pretty.
hold me closely in your arms, and I will close
don't know what it is, but every night we clean this place up perfectly, we leave it spotless, and then sometimes we come in and there's dirt all over the floor like somebody's been walking in here, and then look, this goblet wasn't here, and someone's been drinking out of it.
So what are you saying?
I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying.
Michael is the only one with a key. He gave us the key, so now we're the only ones with the key. Don't be ridiculous. We tracked the dirt in ourselves, and as for the goblet, we missed last night.
Well, what about the night before last? And last Friday it happened, and the Wednesday before that it happened as well.
So what are you saying?
I don't know what I'm saying. Just something strange is going on here.
Well, I kind of agree with you. Every time I turn around, I feel like somebody's behind me, and then there's nobody there at all.
So maybe a tramp broke in and helped himself to a pint. It's bad weather. Michael would have been ready to help a poor soul in need. There's no problem with that.
Well, I don't have a problem with that either, except that the door is the only way to get in here, right? We have the one key. Now, if someone broke in here, then they'd have to jimmy the door, right?
Right.
Was the door jimmied?
No.
All right, the windows don't open. God knows we've tried. They're painted shut.
Right.
And there's the chimney. It's too small.
So who are you now, Miss Marple?
Sure, why not? Here. Oh, hi, come on in. We still have stuff set up here from last night. But what with this storm and all, I don't know, we're not expecting too much in the way of business. So, I mean, yeah, go ahead. You know, set up, I'll get you a pint, but we might be closing down early. Did you hear something? Did you hear a fiddle?
No.
Did you hear a fiddle?
Well, Maggie, I think you're right. I think that if it's going to be slow tonight, we should go ahead and get done some of that cleaning we've been talking about.
Good idea. You know, Michael's my favorite cousin, but he sure is cleaning disabled.
I'll agree with that.
All men are cleaning disabled. And but that's no reason why we should spend all of this money and time that we spent coming over here becoming drudges. I mean, Michael said we should come over and have a working vacation. So I think we should vacate, and we should not have to work and be scullery maids.
I will be so glad when the weather changes
We are
and the sun
three
comes out.
good-looking women. You know, we should be having fun.
And I am so tired of listening to you complain.
We don't have to.
You guys start
We don't
playing,
have to-
please.
There's moss growing in the corner. No, if we could clean this place up, it would fall down. Let's get him something to drink. Let's get some pints for the guys. Let's do the short one. Would you like something? Just a glass of water? Oh, it's gonna be busy. I'm just gonna pour it in a glass.
Hello there. How many of you are there?
Do you dance?
You have instruments and dancers? Come on in and make yourselves at home. We can play with the guys.
Oh, come on. Oh, here, wait.
Hi, Kathleen. Good to see
I'm
you.
gonna give some to the band. Let's make sure it has a lot of head, and that way it'll look like beer.
Well,
Okay.
all right. Oh, look, Now you're next. The guards had closed down the road, and these people had to stop here, so I told them they could come on in and join the lads and play a tune, and the dancers danced for us.
Oh, that's excellent. It's turning out to be a good day after all.
You know, they're from Alaska. They have Irish dancers and Irish music up in Alaska.
I've always... There's Irish music and dancing everywhere.
Well, I always wanted to go to Alaska.
Isn't that something? I've always wanted you to go to Alaska. I love you.
Yeah, I love you too. Hey, look at this. Look what I found. It's an old diary.
Do you want something to drink?
Can you see?
It's really old, too. It starts in 1925, and it's called Meeting Molly. I love these old diaries. You just get to find out so much about people who wrote in them.
Talk to a Carda. Paddy Dunleavy is on him done.
What was that?
Tá an lá fór agus flick, agus tá tíise agus uchtlas mór.
Right?
Excuse me, I didn't understand a word you said.
I'm Patrick Dunleavy, and who are you?
I'm Maggie. I'm related to Michael, who owns the pub. And who are you related to?
Who am I related to? Well, we're related to the first cousins to the Tsar of the Roaches. We're second cousins to the kings of Prussia. We were third cousins to the kings of Kildare.
Oh, sure.
And fourth cousins to the bold Lord Clare. Actually, I'm really only a beggar man, but you can't tell that to the Yankee tourists. I am a little beggar man, a begging I have been, and for 60 a mower in the little Isle of Green. Known from the Liffey down to Kildaloo, known by the name now of old Johnny Doo. Of all the trades that go, and sure begging is the best. When a man is tired, he can sit him down and rest. He begs for his supper, he's got nothing else to do but roll around the corner with his old rigadoo. Nyan, yan, Newton, night, na, diddly, Newton, night, Newton, diddly, Newton, da. Newton, night, diddly, Newton, da, diddly, Newton, night, da. Slept in the barn, we down in Kellabon. The night been dark and the rain coming on. The hole in the roof and the holes in me shoes. The cats and the rats, they were playing peekaboo. Who should awaken but the woman in the house, with a white spocking apron and a calico blouse. She began to frighten when I said, "Boo! Don't be afraid, ma'am, it's only Johnny Doo." Nyan, yan, Newton, night, na, diddly, Newton, night, diddly, Newton, da. Newton, night, diddly, Newton, da. Diddly, Newton, diddle, da. I met a little flaxy-haired girl one day. "Good morning, little flaxy-haired girl," I did say. "Good morning, little beggar man, and how do you do? With your rags and your tags and your old pickaboo. I buy a pair of leggings and a collar and a tie. A nice little lady I will make you by and by. I buy a pair of goggles and I'll colour them blue. A nice little lady I will make out of you. Nyan, yan, Newton, nya, diddly, Newton, diddly, Newton, da. Newton, diddly, Newton, da. Diddly, Newton, diddly, da. It's over the fields with me baggage on me back. Down through the fields with me grey collie pack. The hole in me shoes and the toes peeping through. And all around the corner with me old rigadoo. I must be going to bed for it's getting late at night. Out goes the fire and out goes the light. Now you heard the story of me old rigadoo. Good night and God be with you all from old Johnny Doo. Can I have a cup of tea, missus?
Yes.
I'm going to have something in there as well.
Okay.
Oh, dear. What? Oh, dear. What? The diary. It starts with Michael's grandfather back in 1925, and it's all about a ghost. Or two ghosts.
Ghost?
One named Molly and one named Tom.
Ghost, you know about the haunting, do you?
Oh, great.
What?
Now haunting? What haunting? Where?
Well, right here in Michael's pub.
No.
Oh,
Oh, that's it.
I want to see it. Oh, well, I'd like to look at it.
I found it.
Well, but that doesn't mean we can't look at it. I have a perfect song for this occasion.
Sing it for us.
Okay, I will. Would you play with me? It's about sisters and a ghost. Why don't you give me a place to start there? There lived a lady by the North Sea shore, laid up and to the bonny broom. 2 daughters were the babe she bore. Fa la 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 la. And one grew bright as is the sun, so coal-black grew the elder one. A knight came riding to the lady's door, traveling far to be their wooer. He courted one with gloves and rings, laid the bend to the bonny broom, but he loved the other above all things. La 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 la. Oh, sister, will you go with me? We'll watch the ships sail on the sea. She took her sister by the hand, led her down to the North Sea strand. And as they stood on the windy shore, the eldest threw her sister o'er. Sometimes she sank, sometimes she swam, crying, sister, reach to me your hand. Oh, sister, sister, let me live, and all that's mine I'll truly give. Your own true love that I'll have and more, you shall never come ashore. And there she floated like a swan, lay the bend to the bonny broom. The salt sea bore her body on. La 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 la. A harper traveling down the sand pulled the maiden to dry land. He made a harp of her breastbone, whose sound would melt the heart to stone. He made harp pins of her fingers fair, lay the bend to the bonny bloom. He took long locks of her yellow hair, with them strung the harp so rare. And then he took the harp to her father's hall, to play his harp before them all. But as he laid it on the stone, it began to play alone. Yonder sits my father the king, and by his side my mother the queen, and there does sit my brother Hugh, by him William sweet and true. And there she sits, my sister Anne, lay the bend to the bonny broom, who drowned me for the sake of a man. La 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 la.
So you mean to tell me that the older sister killed the younger sister and made a harp out of her rib cage? And when it started to play, the murder was revealed?
Oh, of course. Yes, that's it exactly. And I really like the part about one sister making the other sister disappear.
Oh, you did?
But, you know, don't worry. I'll just send you both one way to Alaska. Oh, look. There's even another car pulling up.
Wow.
This is just fine. here is Heather here, and she's with a tour. Hello. And her tour is, she's disconnected from a tour, and the roads have been blocked off. It's a terrible thing, good for us, but a terrible thing. She does need to use the phone. Go ahead and let her use the phone. You can do. Hello. Yoo-hoo. Earth to my sisters. Adria, I am so glad that you're here, because these two are going to be totally worthless to me today. So, thank you. Thank you for coming today. She really is very lovely, and girl, I just don't know why she doesn't wear a dress and let her hair grow out, And lipstick,
Listen to this. A few days after the uprising in 1916 was the last day that Dad, that's James O'Reilly, Michael's great-grandfather, saw either Tom or Molly. In the flesh, anyway. Molly came in the late afternoon saying that she was to meet Tom here in the pub. She waited by the window. As the hours passed, she would take no drink, not even a cup of tea, saying that she'd be off as soon as Tom arrived. As it started to get dark, she said she might just go and see where Tom had gotten to. She started out the door, but stopped short. Turning to Dash, she said, "Mr. O'Reilly, you've been a good friend to Tom and me, and I hate to impose on you further, but if anyone comes looking for me, could you please not say that I was here?" And with that, she was out through the door. So they must have been going to run away together, and something happened to prevent it.
Yes, and that's why they're still roaming about.
Of in rhyme, when for freedom the Fenians tried, and beneath the foggy dew they died. Can you give us that song, Colleen? March of the Hulle.
Oh, Adria's going to sing. Adria's going to sing.
fearless men, not you, who bore the fate that freedom's light might shine through the foggy day. Back through the glen I rode again, my heart with grief was sore. For I parted then with valiant men, whom I never shall
Apparently, our ghosts were both musicians, fiddlers, and they even wrote a song for each other. Isn't that romantic?
Oh, it is.
Oh, yeah.
Terribly romantic.
Really romantic.
Nothing like that would ever happen to me, of course.
Oh, listen to her.
But Patrick.
Good morning.
Morning. You have a lovely singing voice.
Thank you.
I was just wondering if you could tell me, being American, what makes a song Irish as opposed to Polish or Frenchish or Spanish?
Well, now, Mrs., you asked the right person there. First of all, you'd have to have a good walk out in the fresh air. Good bit of sunshine. Second, it never did any harm to have a bit of highway robbery in it. Third, you know, back to the pub, the alehouse, bit of a curtain of a female, a bit of treachery, good fight, and to have a really good one, you need a hanging. As Lovell he was riding out all on the misty mountain, to merchants, the money they were counting. Well, he first produced his pistol, and he never gave them warning. Well, he robbed them of their money, and he bid them all good morning. Oh, the devil's in the women, so they say, but how the devil can a fella let them be? He went to the alehouse and he counted out his money. He asked for the landlady to send him pretty Polly, and while they were drinking and talking of no matter, she filled up his pistols, she filled them up with water. Oh, the devil's in the women, so they say, but how the devil can us fellas let them be? While Lovell and Polly, they were taking their sweet pleasures, in came the troopers, saying, Lovell, you must leave her, for a long time you've been on the road unto the gallows, so come along with me, my lad, be a decent fellow. Oh, the devil's in the women, so they say, but how the devil can us fellas let them be? Well, he first produced the pistol, but he couldn't shoot the water. They beat him, they tethered him, but him they gave no quarter. And Polly, she cried, if I'd known the day were coming, I'd have fought him like a tiger, Lovell, though I'm but a woman. Oh, the devil's in the women, so they say, but how the devil can a fella let them be? As Lovell was climbing up that old gallows ladder, he called out quite gaily for his highway cap and feather. Said, I've always been a wild young man, but I never murdered any, and I find it bloody hard to swing for lifting a bit of money. Oh, the devil's in the women, so they say, but how the devil can a fella let them be?
Here's an entry in the diary from June of 1929 by Connor O'Reilly. Mr. Cox has come back, and Da was in an awful manner afterward. He thinks he has found out what happened to our two. He has been researching the records and brought some papers for us to look over. He did find some facts that were interesting, but wanted Dad to look them over for verification. Dad asked Mr. Cox why he couldn't just leave them in peace, and the man replied, well, sir, they're not at peace, are they? The papers were nothing much to say about what happened to them. There was a ship's log out of Belfast with a Mr. and Mrs. Hannon. Sure, and it could have been them, I suppose. But he could find no marriage record in the parishes between here and Belfast. He also found a record in Kilmainham jail about a young man brought in for questioning. No mention of what happened to him, though, and no release papers. But there was a notation of a burial. Sure weren't there scores of men that suffered that fate. Doesn't have to be our Tom Hannon, though, and it certainly doesn't explain what happened to Molly. And there was even a copy in here I just saw of a document from Ellis Island. That man must have thought that they probably made it to the United States.
But they found sense. How about a story? We need a good ghost story.
Not so long ago when Sir Robert the Bruce was fighting the English in Scotland. They were vastly outnumbered. They decided to have one final battle to determine the victor of the war. So Sir Robert the Bruce was in Bannockburn, and he decided he needed all the help he can get because they were vastly outnumbered by the English. So he summoned his chaplain to bring him a holy relic, the hand of Saint Philly. The chaplain went to the church and brought out the hand, but because the outcome of the battle was so grim, he was afraid that the hand might be lost in the heat of battle, or worse yet, might fall to the English. So he took the hand out of the casement it was in, wrapped it in a white linen, and hid it in a wall of the church. Then he closed the casement and brought it empty to Sir Robert the Bruce, hoping he wouldn't notice and wouldn't ask the chaplain to open it and reveal what was inside. The night before the battle, Sir Robert the Bruce realized that his only hope lay in God and St. Philly. So he sat awake that entire night, kneeling in front of the casement, praying. And the chaplain was there with him, along with his good friend, Angus of the Isles. As they sat there praying, the casement flew up in the air, and a great light shone from it. And the casement opened and then snapped shut again, and fell back on the altar where they had placed it. And this was all that Sir Robert the Bruce and Angus saw, but the guilty chaplain saw more. Next he saw that an apparition of a monk placed his hand on the top of the casement and looked at the chaplain sternly. The chaplain looked away for an instant, and when he looked back, the monk was gone. Seeing this, the chaplain rushed to the casement and opened it. And there lay the hand of St. Phillian, wrapped in the very white linen that he himself had wrapped it in. Confessing all to Sir Robert the Bruce, Sir Robert didn't feel harshly towards him and even forgave him. And the next day, Sir Robert the Bruce went out and won the battle and the war, thanks to God and the hand of St. Phillian.
A good little story. We would. We're going to do a hornpipe. Hornpipe, yes.
Hey, Dan, you want to play with us?
Yes. Yes, we do. We're very fortunate.
to this entry in the diary from May 4th, 1931 by Mrs. Connor O'Reilly. My name is Myra. My unmarried name was Brennan, and my sister was Molly Brennan, and she visits here on occasion. I have seen her often, though I can't seem to get her to speak to me. It's as if she only is looking for one person and can't see anyone else. Sometimes during a celebration, I will see her walk through the room and peer into the faces as if to recognize someone. When she doesn't find who she's come for, she moves slowly to the door and disappears. That means that this Molly, the ghost, is related to us. Right. She was the sister of Michael's grandmother. That makes her related?
Related. Oh, good.
And they stayed at the estate of Tullamore. Well, there, it was his first night. He went up to bed, and for some reason he couldn't sleep, so he got up and started wandering around his room, then went to look out the window onto the cool, flowing lawns of Ireland, and the full moon, and it was just beautiful, and he thought how peaceful it was. But then suddenly he saw a movement out of the corner of his eye, and it was a man just strolling across the lawn, and he must have been carrying something heavy because he was bent almost double under the weight of it. So Lord Dufferin just watched this man. But when he got to the center of the lawn, he stopped. And he looked straight up at Lord Dufferin in the face. And Lord Dufferin backed away from the window in horror because the features of this man were so terrible. When he got up the nerve to look back again, the man had turned to face the ground where his face was hid with shadow and continued his procession across the lawn. Somehow transfixed by this strange sight, he watched until the man was out of his vision. But only then he realized that what this man was carrying on his back was not any ordinary package, it was a coffin. Now, thinking this rather unusual, he had a rather sleepless night after all, and the next morning he told his host. But his host could make none of it, as he knew nothing of men carrying coffins across his lawn in the middle of the night. So they forgot it for the next couple of years. But then he became a diplomat to the French. And a few years later, he had a very important business meeting on the 5th floor of a Paris hotel room. So as they were waiting for the lift to come down to take them up to the 5th floor, he was engaged in conversation with his secretary and didn't even notice that the lift had arrived until the doors were almost shut. Then his secretary pulled him inside. And this was the first time he looked at the uniformed elevator operator. Then in horror, he stepped back out of the elevator just as the doors closed. For this man was the same one he had seen that night at Tullamore. Unsure what to do next, he waited there. But then he heard a loud screech, and then a sickening thud. Later it was learned that just as the elevator reached the 5th floor, and before the doors had opened, a faulty cable had snapped, and the elevator had plugged it to the very bottom of the elevator shaft, killing everyone inside. When Lord Dufferin inquired about the elevator operator, wondering who this man could be, it was found that he was a replacement for that day only, as the regular elevator operator had gone sick. So no one knew who he was, or where he lived, where he had come from, or why he was there. And the mystery of the coffin carrier of Tullamore has forever been unsolved.
You have a song like that, don't you? I heard you sing it the other day.
Sing it for us. Wait. Don't you have a story? The Captain Jack. Don't you do Captain Jack?
Yeah.
Why don't you do Captain Jack? Go for it.
All right.
Go for it.
Murder, murder, they all cried when they found how her husband had died. Not by cholera, but by her hand. To marry Captain Jack she had planned. But now upon the gallows tree, to marry still they did agree. And as she swung, they heard her say, "It won't be long, love, till our wedding day." And Captain Jack did sail the sea, but from her ghost he could not get free. And upon the deck she was oft heard say, "It won't be long, love, till our wedding day." And now the wedding day did appear, and all the sailors filled with fear, as Captain Jack fell from the mast, and such a strange sight came to pass. Sailors swear to this day they saw 2 bodies on the sway, and to Jack the ghost did say, today it is our wedding day.
That's based on a true story too.
My young love said to me, my mother won't mind, and me father won't slight you for your lack of kind. And she stepped away from me, and if she did say, it will not be long, love, till our wedding day. She went away from me, and she moved through the fair, and fondly I watched her move here and move there. Then she went her way homeward with one sorrow awake, as the swans in the evening move over the lake. People were saying no two ever wed, but one has a sorrow that never was said. She smiled as she passed me with her goods and her gear, and that was the last that I saw of my dear. I dreamt it last night that my dear love came in. So softly she entered, her feet made no din. She laid her hand on me, and this she did say, it will not be long, love, till our wedding day. It will not be long, love, till our wedding day.
Willies, I think we need some music or something. Dancing or something. Too much talk about ghosts. Yeah, let's music, dancing. I'm getting willies. Too much talk of ghosts. Yeah, but you're gonna play? Dance. Could you dance? Could you dance? Yeah, you dance.
When I wake up from my dreams, you'll be there by my side. Love, if you say you won't slip away, then I can go dreaming of forevermore. But I won't rest until
My grandmother passed away, which was all really sad, but she told us that she'd be the best guardian angel any of us ever had. And we know she was there because she'd leave a lucky penny for us. Because lucky pennies were always like her thing. Whenever she was walking along, you know how most people don't even notice lucky pennies, but whenever she saw one, she'd bend down and pick it up, and she'd get really excited because it was a penny. Pennies aren't really worth much, but they were to her. Well, a couple months ago, my uncle was driving along a high mountain road with his girlfriend. And well, before I was born, my other uncle died in a car crash. He rolled his Jeep because they were driving along a gravel road and he just slipped out. So anyways, my uncle's driving along a high mountain road with his girlfriend. And there's no guardrails, and it's the middle of New Mexico. And so it's one of those really narrow roads. So they slipped out in one of the corners, and they fell about 500 feet down a cliff, rolling in his Jeep. Later, they both survived, luckily. And later, when they asked people for help, they said, well, that wasn't your Jeep, because if it was, you'd be dead right now. Well, when they got out, and they were examining themselves, kind of shocked to figure out, what had happened and what was wrong, the only injury any of them suffered was my uncle's girlfriend bruised her fingers because she put her hand up on the roll bar as they were rolling over and over again in their Jeep. So as they walked around the outside of the car, they started noticing pennies placed up on all the rocks. And there were about 7 or 8 pennies in a circle around their Jeep. So we know that the only reason he survived is because my grandmother was watching out for him.
So, as near as I can tell, the ghost is Molly, whose sister married Connor O'Reilly, who was our cousin Michael's grandfather, and they had a daughter who was also named Molly, who was our cousin Michael's mother. Yay! Now listen to this. July 6, 1951, Molly O'Reilly writes, "Sure didn't Aunt Molly show herself in a strong manner last night. She came blowing through the pub something fierce, playing that tune of hers. And didn't this older American tourist lady think she was real? And wasn't she kind enough to leave a tip for that lovely young fiddle player, as she put it? I gave the tip to the barmaid. She needs it more than I do, and certainly more than Molly does."
Susan, have you ever seen a ghost?
I remember hearing the singing of the choir fella's ghost in Mountjoy jail.
In jail? You heard a ghost singing in jail?
Mm.
You were in jail?
Well, I was innocently incarcerated. The sheep followed me home, and I told the tick guard, but he wouldn't listen to me.
Oh, that's what they all say, yes, pleading innocent.
Well, he used to sing a song on the dark mornings. Well, a hungry feeling came o'er me stealing, and the mice were squealing in me prison cell, and the old triangle went jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. As the dawn was creeping, Big Gussie was sleeping, and he was dreaming of his girl Sal, and the old triangle went jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. As the dawn was peeping, the screw was bawling, saying, "Get up, you bowsies, and clean up yourselves." And the old triangle went jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. Well, in the female prison there was 75 women, and sure that's where oft I was longing to be. But the old triangle went jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. So a hungry feeling came o'er me stealing, and the mice were squealing in my prison cell, and the old triangle went jingle jangle all along the banks of the Royal Canal. Shinawil. Have I ever been in jail?
You know, you asked about ghosts, but does one really know when they've seen a ghost? How would you know? We've been brought up with stories of white sheets and things that go boo. But how would you know if you've seen a ghost? I'll tell you my story. It was 28 years ago, this month. I was 16 and found myself in Ireland. The how and why of my coming there, that's another story. and suffice it to say, I had my reasons. But nevertheless, being 16, I had to support myself. In my travels, people had told me that the best work an able-bodied man could find in Ireland was on the boats. The work was hard, the hours were long, the wages were paid in shares, and were usually not that good. It was also dangerous. As the song says, what force leads a man to work full of dangers, high on seas or in mines on the ground. It's when needs is his master, and poverty no stranger, and there's no other work to be found. That was my situation. I decided to continue my search for boats in the town of Galway in western Alaska. I pounded the docks that Friday night, asking all the crews on the boats if they needed a hand. They all said the same thing. We don't need a hand, but the Niamh Colleen is always looking for crew. I located the Niamh Colleen at the other end of the harbour, and I could see why she was always looking for crew. A 50-foot boat of wood, it had seen better days, shall we say. Its new black paint did not hide its years of abuse and dilapidation. I called the crew, all the people on board, and out came a giant of a man from the pilot house. His name was Johnny Bailey. He was the owner and skipper of the Niamh Colleen. He was 6'3", and probably all of 300 pounds, giant hands, and he wore a little black cap slung low over his giant square face, the defining feature of which was a broken nose that made him look every bit the pugilist I'm sure he was. He was followed by another man, smaller, older, wiry, more spry, called Seamus McCulloch. I subsequently learned that they were lifelong friends, and these were the two permanent crew members of the Niamh Colleen. I asked them if they needed a hand, and they said they did. They asked me if I had experience, and I answered honestly I didn't. So they said they would take me on a half share as a trainee. They advised me to come back the next morning on Saturday to work, tending the net, getting it ready, and to familiarize myself with the boat, which I was happy to do. That Saturday, working with Johnny, I realized he was a man of very few words and a short temper. He gave very short, simplistic instructions, which if they weren't followed to his satisfaction, he would usually roar his displeasure. He had a peculiar Connaught accent that you might be familiar with, but what made it all the more odd is he had a very high voice for a man of his size, very out of character to his appearance. Seamus, however, was much more friendly, garrulous, and every time Johnny would bark at me for something I did wrong, Seamus would say, he's all barking, no bite, and tell me I'd grow to like him in time. But I didn't mind. Getting a browbeating for the job was part of the learning experience, I suppose. So that Sunday, I wrote letters, and with my dwindling remains of cash, bought myself a few treats. Sure, I was going to make some money now on the boats. Monday morning, I was awakened by a young man who jumped down the companionway ladder and identified himself as Eamon Kerr. He was smaller than me, and I felt somewhat younger. He had red hair, blue eyes, freckles, wore a striped jumper. Said he was a crew member of the Niamh Colleen, which was new to me, and welcomed me aboard, and said that Johnny and Seamus would be along shortly. He climbed back up the ladder, and no sooner had he done so when Johnny Bailey climbed down the ladder and told me we were to motor over to the co-op to get fuel and ice for the day's trawl. In those days, boats in Ireland were all made of wood and went out every day. They rarely stayed overnight at sea. They would go out early in the morning, make 3 or 4 sets of a trawl, come back in the evening. 12 to 14 hours is a rule, sometimes 16 to 18. Anyway, we motored over to the co-op and we tied the boat alongside the fueling dock. He instructed me to fill up the tanks, which I did. Now in those days, those pump dispensers did not have an automatic shut-off. You had to hold onto it or watch it so that it didn't overflow. As I was filling the tanks, sure enough, Eamon came along and said to me, why don't you let me fill the tanks? You should go down below and fill your kit, or pack your rucksack as it was, saying it was bad luck to keep an open kit on board a fishing boat. I wasn't about to argue with him about superstitions. If that's how they felt, I thought I might as well do it, since he was actually the experienced crew member, not me. I went down below and rolled up my sleeping bag and put my things back in my rucksack. It took me all 3 or 4 minutes. When I came back on board, I noticed diesel filling up and overflowing out the decks of the boat. I rushed over and shut off the dispenser. Who should come along then but Johnny Bailey? The diesel had overflowed off the deck onto the water, and a telltale rainbow sheen was forming on the water. He said, what's happened here now? You spilled the fuel costs money, you know. I told him I was sorry, told him it wouldn't happen again. He said, if it happens again, it'll be coming out of your share. So, what could I say? I felt it wasn't advisable to implicate Eamon at this point. The next job at hand was to fill the hold of the boat with ice. This was done by using an enormous tube that literally blew out shavings of ice that was literally sucked in from the co-op, by an enormous vacuum cleaner as such. It was my task to go down into the hold and to distribute the ice evenly to keep the boat evenly weighted. I did this. It was a thankless task, but it had to be done. But as I was distributing the ice, who should come up again behind me but young Eamon. He apologized for what had happened with the fuel and said, why didn't I go up to the co-op and get the totes for the fish, and he would distribute the ice, and said that he could not go into the co-op for some sort of family reasons. Since certainly distributing the ice was the less pleasant job, I agreed. I went up into the co-op and gathered the totes together, put tags on them with the name of the boat, the Neve Colleen, the date, and found myself a trolley to wheel them back to the boat. As I was wheeling them back to the boat, I dare say this process couldn't have taken more than 10, 12 minutes, I noticed the boat was listing to port, leaning to the left. As I came up, I realized that the ice had filled up entirely on one side of the hold and was now even spilling onto the deck. I couldn't believe it. Eamon was nowhere to be seen. I rushed over and shut off the blower. But once again, who should show up but Johnny? This time he was bloody mad. He gave me a good berating and told me to take a shovel and to distribute the ice throughout the hold. At this point, I felt I had to let him know what had happened. I said, look, Johnny, I'm sorry, but Eamon said he was going to distribute the ice. This didn't please him. He said, sure, I didn't ask no Eamon to fill up the boat to distribute the ice. It's your job. So I got down in the hold and started shoveling the ice all around. Sure enough, Eamon came along again. He apologized profusely. He said, look, I've sorted it out. I told Johnny what had happened. Why don't you let me do this job since it's my fault? You go up to the shop and get the day's tea and our supper. So I thought that was fair enough. As I walked down the quay back to the shop, it was called Kerr's, in fact, I told him that I was with the Neve Colleen and I was to pick up the supply for the day's tea and supper. The man behind the counter filled a bag, gave it to me. I signed my name as a crewman of the Neve Colleen and headed back down the dock. As I was walking down the dock, I noticed to my horror the Neve Colleen pulling away from the dock. I ran up to catch them, but it was way too late. And as I ran up, I noticed my rucksack on the pier. I realized what had happened. I'd been put off the boat. As I looked at the boat as it sailed away, I noticed none other than Eamon Kerr sitting on the net on the stern, waving at me with a malicious grin. It was only then I realized what had happened. I'd been tricked out of my berth by this devious little devil. I was furious, enraged completely, and I realized I probably could not get back on board that boat, but I was going to get even with Eamon Kerr. I was determined to give him a nose much like Johnny Bailey's if I had anything to do about it. I pounded the streets all that day in Galway, often thinking in my mind what I would say to Eamon Kerr when he set foot again that evening. And I suppose I had many a sophisticated dialogue that I doubt would occur with him. But as I headed back to the harbor, it was only then I noticed that it was a very windy day. You don't really notice it when you're in narrow streets as Galway. You might feel a gust, but my mind was taken up with other things. And when I got back out to the harbor where it was more open, I realized it was not a gust, but a 4, 6, or 7 gale at least, if not more. So much so I had to bend against it to walk. As I looked out onto the bay, I could see it was completely alive with whitecaps and wind-blown spray. The boats, like a train, were headed back into the harbor because the water was so rough. As they came up to the dock, I helped them tie up and asked them what it was like, the crew members. They could only respond with expletives. So bad was it. Their faces showed with panic and fear. One of the guys who I was helping tie up then said to me, a boat radioed that was going down. Apparently it had sprung a garboard plank, was taking on water and fired up a flare before it went down. Which boat? I said. The Neve Colleen, he said. I was amazed. I said, that's incredible. I was supposed to be on that boat. He looked at me with great concern. He said, do you know who was aboard? I said, I do. He signaled to his skipper, and I told him the story. The skipper said, we'd best go tell the co-op manager who's aboard because their family will need to know. A rescue boat had already gone out to see if they could find survivors. But to be honest, in Irish waters, for these type of conditions, the water's cold and the tides are strong. It's rare that people survive, and it's even rarer that they find the bodies. We went up to the co-op manager, and they asked me who was aboard. I told them, Johnny Bailey, Seamus McCulloch, and Eamon Kerr. When I told him Eamon Kerr, he seemed puzzled. He asked me to describe him. I did. The young man, red hair, blue eyes. He looked at the skipper, whose name was Michael, in a sort of look of recognition and confusion. He said, we'd best go to the harbor master and report this. As we walked out, I noticed Michael told his crew that I'd seen Eamon Kerr, and they all followed me to the harbor master's office. As we walked in there, he instructed me to tell the harbor master who was on board. I told him, Johnny Bailey, Seamus McCulloch, Eamon Kerr. Once again, that same look of recognition and puzzlement.
he too asked me to describe Eamon Carr, which I did. At this, they were all looking at each other. He said, "You best come with me." We headed out across the harbor back over to Kerr's shop. It was only then I made the connection. Kerr's shop, Eamon Kerr. I realized I was about to be given the thankless task of telling this man that one of his family had gone down. I had a very heavy heart about this. A small crowd was now attending us as we walked into Kerr's shop. We walked in, the harbor master instructed me to tell the shopkeeper, who I'd met earlier that day, whom I had seen, whom was on board. I told him again, Eamon Kerr. I didn't feel it necessary to tell him the details of my experience with Eamon Kerr, thinking that this tragedy was hardly in place to say such a thing. I described whom I saw. They all looked at each other with a look of puzzlement. He went into the back room, he came back with a photograph and said, "Is that the young lad you saw?" I said, "Indeed it is." I said, "That's Eamon Kerr." He said, "Yes, that's Eamon Kerr. That's my son." I said, "I'm terribly sorry for your tragedy. What else could I say?" He responded in a strange way. He said, "It's not a tragedy. It's a miracle." I noticed several people genuflected when he said this. I looked at him puzzled. I said, "I'm sorry, I don't understand." He said, "The man you see, the lad you see in this picture, that's my son, Eamon Kerr. The man next to him is my brother, Liam, his uncle. Liam had a small fishing boat and used to go out for salmon and drop nets, drop pots for crab. Eamon was always keen to work on the boats, and as much as I tried to dissuade him, he was determined. So after his 15th birthday, I told him he could go out with his uncle Liam. They went out on a day much like this in the month of March. They never came back. The boat was swamped, they went down. The bodies weren't recovered. That was 12 years ago, he said. I was quite puzzled. I said, "I spoke to Eamon Kerr this morning. I spoke to this lad this morning." He said, "I know you did." He said, "It's a strange thing." He said, "Some years ago, another young man, just like yourself, up in Killala Bay, came with the same story. He said he was tricked off the boat, as I suspect you were, by a young Eamon Kerr fitting this description." He said, "That's all just like our Eamon." At this point, I could see the tears running down his cheeks, and his voice was choked with emotion. He said, "That was just like our Eamon. He was always looking out for other people. He's looking out for them still." I didn't know what to say. I could hear men weeping behind me as he told me this story. I was overcome with emotion myself, but I couldn't quite understand what was going on. I told him, "I'm sorry." He said, "Don't worry, lad. It's not your fault." He said, "You go, God." He said, "You go, son. You go with God." I took my pack and I left. I couldn't remain in Galway. There was just too much strangeness about it, to be quite frank. It was surreal. And everybody knew everybody else there. I felt a sense of elation that I had survived, and yet a sense of incredible burden that I had survived and others had not. I headed back east to Dublin and ultimately found work on a boat to Dunedin and Howth. And such I made my way in Ireland. But you ask me if I've ever seen a ghost, and I say I don't know. All I can say is I'm haunted to this day.
Hey everyone, Gary has a song about ghost ships. Why don't you sing it for us? Yeah, go ahead.
Southern gales, tattered sails, and none to tell the tale. Come all you rusty ghost seagulls, who follow the bright Southern Cross. You were rounding the horn in the eye of a storm when you lost her that day, and you read all your letters from oceans away, and you took them to the bottom sailor's last dance. It was not meant to be. And you read all your letters from oceans away, and you took them to the bottom of the sea. All around old Cape Horn, ships of the line, ships of the morn, some who wish they'd never been born, they are the ghosts of Cape Horn. All around the riddle-dee-rum with the rim-dim-diddy and a rum-dum-dum, sailing away at the break of dawn, they are the ghosts of Cape Horn. All around old Cape Horn, ships of the line, ships of the morn, some who wish they'd never been born, they are the ghosts of Cape Horn. All around the riddle-dee-rum with the rim-dim-diddy and a rum-dum-dum, sailing away at the break of dawn, they are the ghosts of Cape Horn.
Dancing, I hope.
Yeah, see some dancing.
Go, go, go. Ruby, why don't you join them?
Check this out. Look, Kathleen, this is a piece of music. Tom must have written it for Molly. What do you think?
There's actual music written to it?
There's music written to it.
And words as well?
It's called Lullaby.
Where's Cat?
Come and join us.
Thank you. Thank you.
You could sit.
you so much. My name is Sid Cohen. Pleased to meet you.
Pardon, Larry. Can I talk to? Now, would you be one of the Cohens that lived in Goldsmith Street, near Fitzroy?
What? Sure, there have been...
One of Bobby's?
You're Irish. You spoke...
Sure.
I don't mean to be insulting. You just don't look Irish.
Is it the clothes? Actually, I was born in Dublin, and my father before me. There have been Cohens in Ireland for centuries. In fact, it's believed one of the lost tribes actually made its way here eventually. You've probably heard of them, the leprechauns.
So then, now hold on a minute. You would be the Goldsmiths then from Fitzroy then?
Oh, sure.
So would you be one of Bobby's boys?
He was my grandfather. Did you know him?
Did I know him? You know, Sid here comes from a long line of Irish patriots. Bobby Cohn fought in the GPO with Michael Collins and Pádraig Pearse. He was twice Lord Mayor of Dublin. And his son, Benjamin, was also a Lord Mayor of Dublin.
Cousin Ben. We've got 3 more cousins in the Parliament, too, in Dublin. I don't remember their names. Back in Brooklyn, we just call them the Doyle boys.
So would you know Herzog? He was a Dublin fella as well.
And the former president of Israel. He was another of the cousins.
You know, they're a fine family, these Cohens. Fine family. And you know, there's 3 of them up in the Supreme Courts.
Oh, well, then, it wouldn't surprise me at all, then, if he was even related to Leopold Bloom.
Yes.
As well.
And yes.
Yes.
Well, tell me, do you know the story about the Jewish shopkeeper? Well, what happened in Ireland was, you see, the English wouldn't allow us to write anything in Gaelic. So this Jewish shopkeeper, he puts his name above the door in Hebrew. Now the big tick of a guard goes around and he sees the Hebrew above the door, and you know what he does? He thinks it's in Irish. So he arrests the Jewish shopkeeper and he brings him up into the courts.
I learned that song from me sainted mother when I was just a wee lad.
Well, sure.
I'll sing it for you. Maybe this fair last year can accompany me on the piano, if you know it.
Grand.
The policeman walked out, oh so proud on his beat, when a vision came to him of stripes on his sleeve. A promotion, he whispered, I'll try for today. So come with me, Mr. Right to Rely. Come tell me your name, says the limb of the law, to the little fat man selling wares on the straw. What's that, sir? Me name, sir, white is there on display, and it's Moses Right to Rely, Now the trial, it came on and it lasted a week. One judge said 'twas German, another 'twas Greek. Prove you're Irish, said the policeman, and beyond it say nay, and we'll sit on it, Mr. Right to Rely. The prisoner stepped up there as stiff as a crutch. Are you Irish or English or German or Dutch? I'm a Jew, sir, that came over to stay, and my name it is Moses Right to Rely. We're 2 of a kind, says the judge to the Jew. You're a cousin of Briscoe, and I am one too. This numbskull is blundered, and for it we'll pay. Wish that's right, says Moses Right to Rely. There's a garbage collector who works down our street. Once was a policeman, the pride of his beat. And he moans all the night, and he groans all the day, singing Moses Right to Rely, oh, Rely.
He moans all the night and he groans all the day, singing Moses right to rely, Moses right to rely,
lullaby that Mama used to sing us when we were babies.
That lullaby that Mama used
Yeah,
to sing us?
Maggie, Kate, sing it for us.
Come on, Maggie.
Oh, it's not really a lullaby.
Well, she sang it to us when we were little.
No, jeez. It's
She sang it to
it's
us.
just a terrible little song that we used to sing to one another to kind of scare each other.
I remember sitting around campfires, you know, roasting marshmallows and singing this song.
It's a goofy little song.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Said the Lord unto his lady as he rode over the moor, beware of long Lankin that lives amongst the moor. Beware the moss, beware the moor, beware of long Lankin. Be sure the doors are bolted well, lest Lankin should creep in. Where's the master of the house, says Long Lankin. He's away to London, says the nurse to him. Where's the lady of the house, says Long Lankin. She's up in her chamber, says the nurse to him. Where's the baby of the house, says Long Lankin. He's asleep in the cradle, says the nurse to him. We will pinch him, we will prick him, we will stab him with a pin, and the nurse shall hold the basin for the blood all to run in. So they pinched him and they pricked him and they stabbed him with a pin, and the false nurse held the basin for the blood all to run in. Lady, come down the stairs, says Long Lankin. How can I see in the dark? Chases after him. You have silver bangles, says Long Lankin. Lady, come down the stairs, fire lighted them. Down the stairs the lady came, thinking no harm. Lankin, he stood ready to catch her in his arms. There was blood all in the kitchen. There was blood all in the hall. There was blood all in the parlor, where my lady she did fall. Now Long Lankin shall be hanged from the gallows oh so high, and the false nurse shall be burned in a fire close by. Said the Lord unto his lady as he rode over the moor, beware of Long Lankin that lives amongst the gorse. Beware the moss, beware the moor, beware of Long Lankin. Be sure the doors are bolted well, lest Lankin should creep in.
That was lovely, just like Mom used to do.
Listen to this. I found out how Molly got away from her house that night without her parents knowing. It says here, this is written in 1931 by Mrs. Connor O'Reilly. That would be Aunt Molly, right? I was but 7 that year. We girls weren't let to go out at all in the days after the uprising. We all stayed well away from the windows and waited for the reports from my uncles. My father stayed with us much of the time, but he would go out and try to catch news of what was happening at the jail and in the courts. Mostly, we stayed with our mother and our nanny. One day, when Mother was in the kitchen, Molly came down the stairs carrying a suitcase and her fiddle. She put them outside the door and came to me. She pulled me onto her lap and kissed me and said we were going to play a game. She would hide and I would try to find her, and I was to keep looking until I found out where she was hiding, and I should tell Mama we were playing. Then she held me close, whispered that I was a treasure to her and that I should never forget that. I started counting. I don't remember now how high I counted, but when I got as high as I could go, I went looking for her. I went everywhere and even asked my sisters for help. We all talked about how good Molly was at this game. Then Mother joined us. It wasn't too long before she sent for my father. The weather had turned bad and the afternoon wore on and we still couldn't find her. We called in every room of the house to get her to show herself. Finally, I went to the front door and peeked out and asked Mother where Molly's fiddle had gone. She asked me, and why would the fiddle be out the door, Myra? Because that is where Molly put it before our game started, I replied. It was only then that Mother understood what had happened. That's so sad. She must have been terribly, terribly in love to have braved the streets of Dublin in those terrible times.
Oh, magnificent things are done in the name of love. Patrick, you're snoozing again. Have you ever been in love? I mean, do you know any good Irish love songs?
Well, have I ever been in love?
You have a lovely voice.
You know, she was so beautiful. I used to actually bring her out to the garden so the roses could have a look at her. And her hair was like the night. And her eyes, like the grey morn. And her voice was like the lark. Such a sweet Dublin brogue, and I loved her. My ain Eileen Oak. Eileen Oak, and that's the darling's name is. Round the barony of beauty it was famous. If we loved her, who was there to blame us? Wasn't she the pride of Petrivore? But her beauty made us all so shy. Not a single man could look her in the eye. Boys, oh boys, well that's the reason why we're mourning for the pride of Petrivore. Friday at the fair of Ballintubber, Eileen met McGrath the cattle jobber. I'd like to get me hands upon the robber, for he stole away the pride of Petrivore. He didn't seem to notice her at all, even though she oogled him from underneath the shawl. Looking big and masterful while she was looking small, most provoking for the pride of Petrivore. Eileen, oh, me heart is growing grey, ever since the day you wandered far away. Eileen, oh, there's more fish in the sea, but there's none of them like the pride of Petrivore. So it went as it was in the beginning. Eileen Oak was bent upon the winning. Big McGrath contentedly was grinning, been courted by the pride of Petrivore. So see, I know a girl that would knock you into bits. Oh, with this now Eileen almost lost her wits. The outcome of the ruction is that now the beggar sits with his arm around the pride of Petrovore. Oh, Eileen, oh, me heart is growing grey ever since the day you wandered far away. Eileen, oh, there's more fish in the sea, but there's none of them like the pride of Petrovore. Well, boys, oh boys, good faith is hard to grapple. Of me eye, 'tis Eileen was the apple. It's hard to see her walking to the chapel with the hardest featured man in Petrovore. So boys, oh boys, you listen to what they say when you do your courts and make no display. If you want them to run after you, just walk the other way, for they're all now like the bride of Petrovore. Oh, Eileen, oh, me heart is growing grey ever since the day you wandered far away. Eileen, oh, there's more fish in the sea, but there's none of them like the pride of Petrovore. Well, you know, she drove him to drink afterwards, and I got a better one, so...
Look at this. There's another piece of music. It's also called Lullaby, and this was written by Molly for Tom. Look.
Well, if there's music to it, why don't you play? Can you sing it?
These aren't two separate songs. This is one song. So maybe Tom wrote one part and Molly wrote the other?
Let's try it.
Let's try it.
Hold me closely in your arms and I will close my eyes. Please promise me that when I wake up from my dreams, you'll be there by my side. Love, if you say you won't slip away, that I can go on dreaming of forevermore. But I won't rest until I know that you'll be here in the morning by my side. Stop. I'm having trouble with this part here. Let's try it again. got this song worked out. Would you like to hear the rest of it?
Oh, yeah. Yes, go ahead, sing it.
Okay. Here in my reach, I can see the one that I have wanted for so long. Deep in my heart, I know the arms that hold me now will hold me from now
kind of wonderful. I think they found each other.
Oh, so romantic.
Oh, yeah. This is weird. Look what I just found. This is an obituary dated 30 years ago for Patrick Dunleavy.
Where's Patrick?
Where is he?
Dunleavy the beggar man?
Yes, the very same.
Oh, he's been dead 30 years. So what? I like him anyway.
Look, here's his picture.
No.
We should be on the road.
Better get out, too, because the Arts Guards will be coming any minute. We're past closing time. What a night, huh?
He must have just gone out, but I was sitting right there at the only door.
This is his
I
picture.
didn't see him go out.
Look, look at the picture. Maybe you should come over here and sit down, dear.
Oh, look. He left his glasses, he left his pencil, his book. Look.
He's dead.
Look. No. The Irish Times Racing Almanac, 1970. 1970.
1970.
That's 30 years.
That's a long time ago.
Okay.
Sit down, dear.
You know, it's my luck. They're either married or dead. Oh, I want to go home.
Well, it's going to be a while before we do that.
Oh, they're all gone.
Look, the bar's closed.
Where'd they all go?
Come on, we gotta go.
Were they all ghosts? Maybe they were all ghosts.
They went out the door, Maggie.
Oh, well, all right, well, that's fine. That's fine. We're in Ireland. Strange things happen. Oh, and the little man left
everything's
his hat.
clean.
He left his hat. Full day. The little man left his hat, but he was from New York. He wasn't a ghost. And everything's
Get your
clean,
coat.
and everything's just fine. I want you all to take note.
It's clean.
You see any glasses?
No glasses.
Okay.
Everything's put
There's
away.
a couple of papers out. There's no glasses. Okay, the floor is still messy. But if
Come on, you're gonna be fine.
If we see anything else.
Now from the Liffey down to Killaloe, known by the name now of old Johnny Doo. All who tried to go and begging is the best. Now when a man is tired, he can sit him down and rest. Beg. Newt night, diddly-ite-da, diddly-oot-night-and-doot-night-and-doot-night-da. Slept in the barn way down the Mulla Pond. The night been dark and the rain coming on. Hole in the roof and the hole in my shoe. The cats and the rats, they were playing peekaboo. Who should awaken but the woman at the house with a white stocking apron and a calico blouse? She began to frighten when I said boo. Don't be afraid, ma'am, it's only Johnny Doo. Nya, nya, newt, night, nya, diddly, oot, night, newt, night, diddly, ite, and da. Newt, night, diddly, ite, and da. Diddly, oot, and ite, and doot, and ite, and doot, and ite, and da. Over the fields with me baggage on me back.
Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience. Let's bring them on Kirsten Baird, Betsy Scott, Judy O'Connor, Kathleen Belaski, Eileen Monahan, Adri Cohen, Katie Cueva, Lou Nathanson. You're back there somewhere. That's Victoria and Marcus. We have Lily McGovern. Gary Campbell, and Heather Hutchinson. Evergreen. Last night's fun? The Irish Dance Academy of Alaska under Noreen Westcott's direction. And we have Philip Price. And we would like to introduce our ghosts to you. Please enter Mark Ward and Emily Bliss, our ghostly fiddlers and dancers. You've been a wonderful audience. We've had a pleasure doing it for you this year. I hope there's a bottle in there. We've been a great audience again this year. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again next year. It's been my pleasure to work with this cast. They've been fabulous. Good night. Thank you.